The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need an experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. AmericanEagle.com. That is AmericanEagle.com. All right, let's get right to it. The first story we're going to talk about today, Will Smith revealing that he turned down the lead roles in The Matrix and Inception and Django Unchained. This is a recent interview he did with radio station Kiss Extra. And, of course, with Inception, that role eventually went to Leonardo DiCaprio. And Will Smith said in this interview, Chris Nolan brought me Inception first. I didn't get it. I've never said that out loud. But those movies that go into alternate realities don't pitch well. I kind of get what Will Smith is saying here. You think about, actors and actresses talk about reading certain scripts. If you're reading the script for, The Sixth Sense or The Usual Suspects or even Titanic, you can just feel it jump off the page. When you're dealing with something as complex and dense and visual as Inception, I could see how the script might not immediately jump at you. And listen, I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times by now and still tackling some of the issues there. Inception went on to make $830 million at the box office. Brad Pitt was the first choice, and then Will Smith, and then Leo. That happens even at the highest level of A-list. You hear stories about different roles that actors turn down. There are times, when they make jokes. Like at some point, every actor in Hollywood was saying, well, Leo's fingerprints are on the script by the time it gets to me. Everything was going to DiCaprio, not DiCaprio. He has never made movies that would have us calling him DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio. Thank you very much. That's why I usually just call him Leo. And I think he's probably still getting a ton of scripts that he'll turn down for one reason or another. And back in the day, Tom Hanks was getting everything, or Tom Cruise, and et cetera. It's a Julia Roberts. And, you can only do so many movies. And actors sometimes talk about roles they regret turning down. Sometimes they say, I don't want to talk about the roles they turned down because it's a disservice to the actor who got the lead part. Will Smith also turned down Neo in The Matrix. The part went to Keanu Reeves, of course. And Will says that one is still too tough to talk about. And he said he didn't connect to the Wachowski siblings pitch for the movie. And then Django Unchained, Tarantino offered him the role before it got to Jamie Foxx. It's always interesting, too, because when we hear about different actors who are up for parts and then we think about who was in it, we can't imagine another actor usually in the role. Jamie Foxx was so good, but I think Will would have been great as well. But Will Smith said that he didn't want to make a slavery film about vengeance. He didn't like the creative direction of the story, and he wanted it to be more of a love story. I think it actually is both. Obviously, it's a vengeance story. Now, when Will Smith, give him credit here, he's being transparent and he's naming titles, which a lot of actors won't do, of roles he turned down and regrets he has. And, Will Smith's movies, whether we're talking about a lead role, a supporting role, or him as a producer, but mostly as a lead, have made they've grossed $10 billion, which is $10 billion more than my movies have made. So far be it from me to criticize Will, but I will say this. In the case of Inception, and I understand maybe the script didn't hit him, but by the time Inception was making the rounds and was the next project for Christopher Nolan had made Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, and The Dark Knight. I know a lot of actors would probably say, I might not quite get the script, but I'm going to make a movie with this guy. And as far as Django Unchained, by that point, Quentin Tarantino had made Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, the Kill Bill movies, Death Proof, and Inglourious Basterds. So in both cases, the directors, every movie they made, I think, are 4-star movies, at least 3.5-star movies, and some of them iconic classics. So again, it's Will Smith's choice, but I think a lot of actors would say, no, I'm not quite sure if I'm connecting with this script, but I'm going to work with one of the greatest actors, or one of the greatest directors, I should say, of my generation. That would have been the case both with Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino. My guess is that more than a few actors have signed on for roles, especially with Christopher Nolan. Listen, if it's Oppenheimer, it's Oppenheimer. And that's why Oppenheimer had a cast where you recognize 25 people on the screen because people just wanted to be a part of it. But if I'm in those positions, if I'm in that position and it's Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino, I'd say, let's sign the deal. Then you can send me the script. But again, Will Smith has done pretty well with his own judgment there. This is a complete whiplash of a segue, but I saw this story, and over the last few weeks, you've been listening, and if you have, I appreciate it. I'm kind of expanding the podcast to, we're going to always talk primarily about movies and TV shows and Hollywood and all that, but also some lifestyle things. Sports we've always been talking about, a little closer to radio shows I've done over the years. So I think you guys are okay with that. And it kind of keeps things fresh for me and widens the scope of the podcast a little bit. So this is from the New York Times. And Anna Holmes wrote the piece called Too Much Emotional Support. And this is a new one. Anna Holmes writes, I'm at a loss. We recently had a job candidate come in to give a presentation as part of the interview process. And they brought family members with them, their spouse and several children. This included a 1-year-old who the candidate carried around and interacted with, repeatedly interrupting their own pitch, their own presentation. The candidate also kicked off their shoes and walked around barefoot. No one from HR was at the presentation, but I did mention it to HR staff after the fact. And the HR representative said it's a generational differences, and many candidates are showing up in interviews with parents, spouses, children, or other family members in tow. That's insane. This is a reader sent this to Anna Holmes, who wrote the piece. So she's quoting the reader who's saying this. If I lost my mind, does HR need to make a no family policy for interviews? So now Anna Holmes responds, I'm at a loss as well. A spouse, several children, a baby? Full disclosure, I can't tell if I picked this question and answer because it's so amazingly bananas or because I want to try to figure out if this may indeed be a thing. All right. You guys will tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, the HR representative quoted here says that it's a generational thing. It's not a generational thing. It's a stupid thing. It's a completely boneheaded, ignorant, rude, I don't really want this job thing. I can't believe that in the real world, but apparently this is true, that anybody would show up at a job interview and they're going to make a presentation. So whatever the job is, like, hey, pitch us, not just on yourself, but maybe how you would pitch whatever the product is or whatever the company is involved with. And they're carrying their baby around and then other kids were walking around. You're coming in and you're saying, I'm not serious about this job. That's insane. I would immediately have said, and I know you have to be careful in these days to be sensitive and stuff, but it's a job interview. I would immediately say, listen, if you're interested in this job, you can come back at some point on your own. We're not a daycare center. Now, Anna Holmes, the writer, does say, I can think of two situations in which a job applicant's being accompanied by a family member or spouse makes sense. One would be the candidate has mobility issues and needs assistance. Well, of course. Or the candidate has other disabilities and needs assistance with communicating. In those cases, of course, if you need help in any way to communicate or to get around, yes, you bring somebody in, whether it's a family member or, a professional that you've hired. But the idea of coming in with the family, I don't know, but the kicking the shoes off stuff, I would just be like, get the hell out of my office. That's nuts. You can't do that, and we saw kind of a similar thing happening during the pandemic when most of us were working from home. The great majority of us were working from home, and there were all those Zoom meetings. And I talked to people like, who run companies like AmericanEagle.com and law firms and my media companies. And, some people were very serious about it and would be at the Zoom at the appointed time, and they wouldn't have a bunch of nonsense happening on in the background where the dog's running around or the kids are distracting them. They'd find a place. If they don't have a home office, they'd find a closet, they'd find a kitchen, whatever. And also, dress accordingly, not be there in their pajamas and their robe. And over the months, I heard about people taking it less and less seriously. And it's like, well, you're sending a message there to the boss that you're not really working the same way from home as you would from the office. Same thing here, man. If you're coming in for an interview with the kids, and if you had a problem, it doesn't sound like this because it sounds like there are several family members, like it was a freaking 4th of July picnic. If you had a problem with a sitter or daycare, whatever the case is, you call and say, I'd still love to come in. Can I bring my 3-year-old? They'll be great. Or can we reschedule, which would make more sense. All right. I think we've solved that issue. How about this? Tom Cruise is going to get he's going to receive an honorary Oscar. It's finally Oscar time for Tom Cruise. The Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences has decided. So they do special Academy Awards, right? They hand these out actually at the Governor's Awards, which are in November. So it's like 4 or 5 months before the Oscars. They have the Governor's Awards in Hollywood, and it's a way to they used to do a lot of the honorary Oscars at the Academy Awards, the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award. They moved some of those to the Governor's Awards, and they're expanding it, I think, to make it a little bit more accessible and mainstream. So this time around, Tom Cruise, Dolly Parton, actor, producer, director, dancer Debbie Allen, and the production designer Wynn Thomas are going to get Academy honorary awards for their contributions to big screen culture. So Tom Cruise, obviously the box office king and Mr. Hollywood for decades, is going to be, and he's been nominated for 4 Oscars in the past, twice for Best Actor, once for Supporting Actor, and he was a producer, I believe, on Top Gun Maverick. Hasn't won yet. Debbie Allen, of course, has influenced dance, and she's been a singer, a dancer, a choreographer, a producer, everything, and also has choreographed the Academy Awards ceremony itself 7 times. And then Wynn Thomas, we mentioned, who is a production designer, who's done a lot of Spike Lee films, from She's Gotta Have It, To Do the Right Thing, Jungle Fever, School Days, Malcolm X, and Da 5 Bloods. Also worked on other films, and even King Richard, which the aforementioned Will Smith won an Academy Award for. And Dolly Parton, of course, she's getting the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award, which is given to an individual in the motion picture arts and sciences whose humanitarian efforts have brought credit to the industry by promoting human welfare and contributing to rectifying inequities. And that is certainly true of Dolly Parton. We always hear about her donating millions of dollars to literacy programs and helping those who are less fortunate. And of course, was 9 to 5 and acted in a bunch of movies, including 9 to 5. Now, here's where the Academy is blowing it, in my opinion. They are going to hand out these trophies, as I mentioned, at the Academy's Governor's Awards in Hollywood in November. In this case, especially with Dolly Parton and Tom Cruise, and Debbie Allen's got a big following. People don't necessarily know the work of Wynn Thomas, but a great artist. But when you have Tom Cruise, who's kind of been the face of Hollywood for all these years and doesn't always go to the Academy Awards, he's usually hanging off a biplane somewhere. You do it at the Academy Awards. You do it at the Oscars. More people will tune in. And Dolly Parton, that's a standing ovation of 7 minutes right there. Come on, man. Even when they do the right thing, so to speak, they're like, all right, Tom Cruise. And you know what? I think it's pretty cool. I know actors and directors would always want to win for, the real, if you will, Oscar. But that's the real Oscar, too. You're going to have an Academy Award on your mantle. That's a really cool thing. But why not do a big celebration of Tom Cruise and all his movies through the years? You could show him in Risky Business and all the way up through the Mission Impossible movies and have a great moment and maybe get a few more people to tune in. So I think it's folly to do it at the much more low-key Governor's Awards. Okay, one more Oscar-related story before we take a break, and then we're going to talk about some new releases. Our buddy Seth Rogen, this was a recent piece in the LA Times, but he's mentioned this a few times before. He has publicly suggested that the Academy Awards should consider movies released 5 years prior rather than the immediately preceding years. He says this would allow for a more accurate assessment of a film's enduring quality and cultural impact.
One episode mentions your character's terrible take on A Beautiful Mind. What is your most controversial movie take? I have an idea that I've been trying to champion, I guess is the word, where I think there should be a 5-year lag between when a movie comes out and when it is eligible for award season. And I think the Oscars should be given to movies that came out 5 years previously to when the Oscars that year are being held. Because I think it's so hard to judge a movie's true quality, honestly, in a lot of ways, for a few years. Because you see if it stands the test of time. It's like you look at Crash. You're like, that movie won Best Picture? Really? You're like, come on, what are we doing here? And it didn't age well, and it had zero cultural impact in its wake, And I'm sure there were other movies that came out that year that now, or that 5 years later, you would look at and be like, no, that's what should have won. So that's my controversial movie take. Within that take is that I don't love the movie Crash.
And I think he's right. I think actually, I mean, it's not going to happen because they're going to end the winner for Best Picture of 2019. In 2024 would be kind of weird, but Seth Rogen is right. Maybe somebody else can establish some sort of down the road awards, the retrospective award, whatever you want to call it. I think you should wait 10 years. After 10 years, I think all the publicity, and if there's controversy, any kerfuffles, if you will, all of that will have settled, and now you have the film and its legacy. Because within 10 years, sometimes you'll say, wait, that movie won the Academy Award for Best Picture? That performance won? Certainly 30 or 40 years. But 10 years down the line, I think different pictures would have won. And I've got some examples for you guys. And at the time, some of these were controversial victories, and at the time, some of them weren't. And it just, as time went on, people said, wait a minute, this other film has such a bigger cultural footprint than the one that won. 1942, How Green Was My Valley won the Best Picture award. Citizen Kane did not. That's a no-brainer. Citizen Kane would win if you had done the awards years after the fact. I think, by 1986, people would have said that Raging Bull was the best picture of 1981, not Ordinary People. And certainly by 1991, they would have said that. You look back, and Ordinary People's a good, solid family drama with great performances. Timothy Hutton won the Best Supporting Actor award. Robert Redford directed. But compared to Raging Bull, it's not in the same league. 1969, the best picture was Oliver. They were still voting sometimes for the old-fashioned, Broadway adaptations. Oliver, which had an exclamation point. Stanley Kubrick was nominated for Best Director for 2001: A Space Odyssey. The film wasn't even nominated for Best Picture because it was so far ahead of its time. Certainly by 1979, people would have said, let's give the Oscar to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Saving Private Ryan was beat out by Shakespeare in Love. And the most recent example I think that people mention is that Crash won over Brokeback Mountain. And as the years have gone by, I don't hate on Crash like a lot of people do. A lot of people find it, kind of indulging in stereotypes and heavy-handed. And it certainly is not a subtle modern fable about race relations in America, but I still think it's a really, really good film. But Brokeback Mountain was revolutionary and groundbreaking, and a lot of people think is the better film, Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain. And even in 2019, Green Book. Green Book is another movie that a lot of people hate. I don't hate it, but it did beat out Black Panther and Black Klansman and The Favorite and Roma and Vice. I think if they were doing the Seth Rogen 5 years later thing, I'm not so sure that Green Book would win. All right, let's take a break, talk about Portillo's, and then we'll have reviews of some new stuff coming your way. All right, kids, let's talk about Portillo's. It's one of my favorite places to eat on the planet Earth. My delivery history will bear this out. I also happen to live within walking distance of one of the Chicago Portillo's. Yes, that's right. I'm that lucky. It is amazing. You could order from the restaurant or the drive-thru, but if it's not near you, you can go to portillos.com, and order. They got French fries. They got all kinds of comfort food. The amazing hot dogs, the Italian beef, the Italian sausage, some really good salads, by the way, if you want to take it a little bit easy, because you want to have a little bit room left for the chocolate cake, the best chocolate cake in the world. Think about it. Portillos.com, Portillos.com. That's how you spell it, Portillos.com.
There were so many dead. Infected and non-infected alike.
That's why our home is so precious.
I feel he's a bit young.
He's ready, Jenny.
7, 6, 11, 5.
Once you walk onto that mainland, there's no rescues.
Moving up and down again. Don't. Look at what's in front of you. Let's go.
Okay, 28 years later, hitting theaters. I'm going to start off by telling you guys this is a top 5 zombie movie of all time. One of the best. It's badass. It's kinetic. It's electric. It's emotionally powerful. It takes some giant swings that some people might be, appalled by or shocked by, but I thought, why not go for it? It is extremely violent, and it revels in its violence, and it's a zombie movie. And it's like, if you're going to play a hardcore video game or go see a hard R zombie movie, you got to know what you're getting into. I love this film. I love what they did with it. And this is the third film in this storyline, but it's actually the beginning of a new trilogy. So it's set 28 years after the original outbreak from 28 days later. Terrific cast, by the way. There's a young boy named Spike who becomes the hero of the story, and he's played by an actor named Alfie Williams, and he's terrific. So Spike and his father and his ailing mother live on this island. It's an isolated island community that's under quarantine, but occasionally they venture to the mainland to get supplies and hunt some zombies and all kinds of other stuff that's explained in the thing. And then at one point, Spike decides his mother's ailing and there's no doctors on the isolated island. He decides he's going to take his mother, played by Jodie Comer, to the mainland on his own without his father's knowledge and try to find this legendary doctor who might be crazy, who's played by Ralph Fiennes, and see if he can get a cure for his mother. That's the journey here. So it's this incredible monster movie with the monsters being zombies. And if you might recall from the 28 days and 28 weeks and now 28 years later, the whole thing here is that some of the zombies do move in the typical kind of slow zombie way, but others are like, they're alphas, they call them, and they're super fast, and you have to get them right in the neck. And even if you shoot them with the bow and arrow in the right spot, they keep coming at you. The filmmaking style here is incredible. It's highly visualized and stylized, and sometimes almost surreal, hyper real, quick cuts and saturated colors and changing of lenses and stuff. And it's a lot. You don't want to sit in the front row for this, but it's really cool. The visuals are amazing. And then you get the Ralph Fiennes character kind of reminds me of Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. Where is he crazy? Was he once a great man? Is it a little bit of both? And it does set it up. It sets up for the second part of the trilogy, but it's a complete story on its own. There are victories and losses. There are deaths. There are tragedies. There are deep moments. There's great dialogue. So when I think about, all the great zombie movies going, of course, back to like things like Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero films, and, those are different types of movies and stand alone, but in the pantheon of modern zombie, and we've had a lot of great, obviously zombie TV shows. The Walking Dead is a classic, and all that. There are 57 spin-offs of The Walking Dead. I think it's the Treadmill Dead now, or the Moonwalking Dead. But I got to tell you, it's right up there, man. I think it's a great film. Films like this almost never get recognition when we do talk about the Academy Awards. I probably won't get a nomination for Best Picture, but so far, we're almost at the halfway point of the year. I would put it, I'd still say Sinners is the best movie of 2025 so far. I would definitely have 28 Years Later in my top 5, top 6. It's that good. Badass, bloody, incredible stuff.
Your life isn't up there, Elio. You need to make friends.
I just want to belong somewhere.
So if any aliens are listening, please come and get me. Okay, bye, love you. It's really happening.
We search the universe
For the dreamers and stargazers
like you.
This is awesome!
Are you gonna eat me?
What? Ew. Oh, no. My name's Elio. Well, what's your name?
I'm Glorden.
Don't walk into with the kids to see Elio and then accidentally go to see 28 Years Later. That's another movie that's opening this week and will be the box office champion. Although I will say 28 Years Later, the advanced box office worldwide is huge. But Elio is the new film from Disney Pixar. It's about an 11-year-old boy. And I'll tell you something, spoiler alert, because this is kind of in all the production, I think, in publicity materials. They give us that tragedy, dead parent backstory like 90 seconds into this one. So Elio is an orphan. He's living with his auntie because mom and dad, they didn't even make it to the start of the movie. They didn't even make it to the opening credits. So he's obsessed with space. His mom is actually a major, it looks like she might work for, I don't know, one branch of the military, probably the Air Force or Space Force or SpaceX or something. But she's, kind of concentrating on the real world and real universe aspects of space. But Elio is convinced that there's other forms of life out there. And there's a place called the Communiverse way up high, somewhere in the heavens, which is sort of like the intergalactic United Nations. And they mistakenly believe that Elio is the leader of Earth and they beam him up. And now it's all about taking on the villains. And is he ever going to make his way back home? And because it's a Disney Pixar movie, you have incredible visuals and really cool voice acting and very sentimental stuff as well. One of the things they like to do with these animated films is they create all these, it all goes back kind of the Star Wars cantina scene, but they create all these little characters that are they're kind of gross. They're squishy and they have tentacles and slime and they open their mouths and there's 7 rows of teeth and yet they're somehow lovable. I mean, you even think of like Monsters, Inc. You got that one-eyed dude, Mike, right? Where at first you're like, ah, and then you're like, oh, so adorable. And they have a bunch of those types of creatures here. I don't think it's top tier Disney Pixar. It's not Toy Story. It's not Cars. It's not Finding Nemo, but it's good. It's solid. And it does have a lovely message and beautiful visuals. And it will be a huge hit because parents are looking to take the kids to the movies for an hour and a half and they can either enjoy it or take a nap. So Elio in theaters. And I also want to mention quickly, if you're just looking to kind of hang at home and do a binge watch, there's a good binge watch show on Netflix called The Waterfront coming out.
I'm driving up here and I see the name Buckley everywhere.
Who would choose to be a part of this family?
We have money and standing.
That sentence should be in the past tense.
We're struggling. We're gonna lose the restaurant and the harbor. We have to come up with $2 million in less than 3 months.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna take control of things.
$10 million worth of cocaine and opiates.
You realize we've crossed a line. There's no coming back from this.
Don't have a meltdown right here in the mud.
Sorry.
Do not apologize. Jesus.
This is another one of these crime dramas that's all around a generational legacy of a family. You get that with Yellowstone and Landman. This time around, it's on the waterfront. It's the Buckley family. They live in Havenport, North Carolina, and they've got a powerful fishing dynasty, but it's really just a front for all sorts of nefarious business. And this is from Kevin Williamson, who creator of Scream and a bunch of other stuff, TV hits. And it's got Holt McElhaney. It's got Maria Bello. Terrific cast. Topher Grace playing against type. And it's very bloody. Actually, the violence is pretty creatively gruesome in this when there were shootouts, but it's very soapy. It's not super gritty. It has a lot of twists and turns that we've seen in other series like this. And as I mentioned, there's some violence, but it's kind of an easy watch. I think it was 8 episodes, and even though a lot happens and it can get pretty heavy, it's not the most complex and dense series of this type ever. So I think it'll be a big hit as well on Netflix. People like these kinds of shows. It's called The Waterfront on Netflix. Okay, that's going to do it for this week's podcast. Next week, we are going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Jaws and talk about some of the other greatest summer blockbusters of the 20th century. Thanks for listening.